thing that's come up is we have something, this is what usually happens. You get a card and it may say, we're going to explore a project at berth 161, and we're going to do an initial study, or we're going to do a scoping meeting, or any number of other things that they might put on there. And then what used to happen in the port committee is those would get calendared, and we would know, okay, what's our timeline here? How do we work this with the port committee meetings and with the neighborhood council meetings so that we can submit our comments in a timely way. But what's key to that is a record keeping document of some kind, and one person has to be responsible with it for it. In the past, it's always been the chair of the port committee. So I'm going to suggest that Craig, Chris, you've got way too much other responsibilities too, but I'm going to suggest that Craig be responsible for devising that document. You can find examples of what happened before in the Northwest archives. There's a page on the port committee archives. You can look at that and see what has been done in the past. But if we had a quorum, I'd make a motion to that effect. Maybe you can assign them to that. I don't know, Christian, what you think is your authority for that.
Okay, I think it's a good idea. We could have, maybe I could ask Dan Dixon if he'd be willing to be an alternate, or if anyone else on the port committee wants to be an alternate. But yes, I think that co-chair Craig would be a good candidate for that. Yes.
Yeah, and what he has to do is notify the port, say, hey, send me these notices, and then he just needs to alert committee members. And if we do make it a working committee or a working group or something like ad hoc or so forth, I talked to Doug about an ad hoc committee, and he didn't think it needed to be Brown acted. It's just a group of people getting together working on the environmental stuff. He said for years that's why they've done it in coastal, is their group gets together, does it, and then they bring it to the port committee or to their neighborhood council once they have something done in draft form. Excuse me. I think that would be the easiest way. And I tell you, those notices often come out with relatively short lead times, so that it's almost impossible to draft comments, have them considered by a port committee, and then have them forwarded and approved by the neighborhood council, and then submitted to the port in the time allowed in the public notices. So anything we can do to shorten those times is going to be helpful to us. And this is one thing that we can do. I don't know, Tom, what do you think?
No, I like that direction. I think we need to spend more time, working and thinking through ideas and then bringing them. I think that's how our recommendation get done. We can't do it all in the short amount of time we have here together in the formal meeting.
Right. Anyhow, you know what, Christian, if it's okay with you and with Tom, I'll call Chris Cannon tomorrow and say, hey, Chris, I've known him for years. He's, in addition to being having environmental degrees and so forth, he's also a lawyer. And with a degree from University of California, Bolt Hall. And I'll just say, hey, Chris, help us out here. Give us the status on all of these 4 or 5 projects that are in the works right now, and what the status is. Define the project for me. And on this particular one, on the SA one, I'll get those important things like, what's the project definition? What's the identified, what is the proposed environmental document? What are the identified negative impacts? And when are the comments due? And then I get hold of Tom and Jason and Kathleen, and maybe we've got time to hammer something out. Shouldn't be too hard, because SA Recycling has been at that site in the harbor on an expiring lease for a really long time. So Anyway, how's that fly with you guys? I mean, we can't make a decision because we don't have a quorum.
I like it. I think that's a good plan.
Right. I'll do that. We take, I think it was an earlier item. We
I
passed
think
over-
that,
oh, go
pardon
ahead.
me, if you don't mind, I think Roy Hernandez here is from the recycling center.
Okay.
So I don't know if someone wants to recognize him and give him a opportunity to speak.
Sure.
Yes, good evening. My name is Roy Hernandez. I'm the safety environmental manager for ISA Recycling. I was just I wasn't sure what exactly what project or application the company submitted. I just want to say that you know, this company's been there for over 40 years. We give jobs to thousands of people. Not that I know of, we're not doing nothing bad to the environment. I don't know if you guys know, but we've had a AQ&D in our facility like every other year. We had DTSC, our San Pedro yard. They've taken samples of everything around the yard. Air quality's been there, so I'm not exactly sure what if there's any complaints from Wilmington or from anybody else. Our doors are open to the public, to anybody to come and see us, visit us, or inspect us. I've been with the company for about 5 years now. And like I said, we give jobs to everybody. And I mean, if I think to myself, if we didn't have this recycling company, where would all the junk, all the recycling, all the metal, all this stuff, where would it go? Just to the landfill? That's just my point of view.
Well, I go to Japan and come back as Toyotas and Mazdas. No, you make a really good point, Roy. I think what we're going to find out when we talk to Chris Cannon is that the project is a lease renewal, and what the port has what the port has done in the past is adopted a policy that lease renewals do not generate a new environmental document because we already know the impacts of the document. The only thing that they look at is what's changed or what's new. And that's where there may be some controversy, and maybe you can answer the question too about some thought that they're replacing some equipment to increase the throughput, which may increase the particulate emissions in the air and so forth. We don't know because we don't have the document in front of us. But that's one of the things I think it makes this an easier project to analyze than some others are going to be, is that it's a lease renewal, I think, but we don't know.
Okay. I mean, and as far as changes, I know the company, I mean, our crane that we had, we made electrical I'll say about 3 years ago. So it's not diesel. A lot of the machines that we use to carry the material to process it from one area to another, they're also brand new machines. We got some grants from the state, and then I know the company put the rest of the money. So there's less emission. And we also have a 9,000 horsepower shredder. This is the one that shreds the cars and appliances and stuff that have been depolluted. And we have a system called RTO. This one reduces the emission like 99.6%. And those are things that I learned from this company that they've been doing.
Yeah, my history with this site actually goes back to 1971 or 1972, Roy, when I was an assistant U.S. attorney, believe it or not, before I went to the city attorney's office and started working on environmental matters there. So, you know, I got kind of soft spot in my heart for those Hugo-Nuproller machines and all of the shredders in the port and the system of wrecking yards that they support all over the Southland. So it's a very interesting industry. Thank you for speaking.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for having me in this meeting today. Thank you so much.
Roy, may I ask, so what happens to materials that could have trace amounts of radioactive compounds or other trace amounts of toxic material? How do you handle that? Do you send that to another place, or how do you mitigate that not going into the environment?
Yeah, so we have in our scales, we have sensors that read any radioactive material. And if it's very rare that we receive anything from our scale house, and anything we receive, if we do find a material with radioactive, the alarms will go off. So we will get this material, put it in a place like segregated, and find out exactly where's that radiation. Sometimes it could be a pipe that came from the ocean, or some of those gauges that are like from 1950s, or just paint could have uh, radioactive. So what we do with these, we call them, we put them in a bin, and we send these to Anaheim. But we've got to go through a whole process, a paperwork process, when we receive this kind of material. If it's so critical that if we were to send, because a lot of our material in San Pedro, we send it to China, India, whatever it is. So if you were to send any kind of radioactive material on that ship, they could reject that ship and send it back to us. And we would have to unload the whole ship and find out exactly where that radioactive piece is at. And that piece, I mean, we're talking about, it could be an inch to 5 inches to a feet long. I mean, it'll be very critical for the company, not only money wise, but time consuming. So we haven't had any issues with radioactive material in our yard in San Pedro. And so we take that very serious and very critical. In regards to hazardous waste, we don't receive any hazardous waste. If we receive anything with waste, I mean, like for example, our vehicles that come in, we need to make sure we depollute them. We take off the gasoline, the batteries, the oils, the grease, the tires. We don't accept none of that stuff. And a lot of this hazardous waste, we treat it as with manifest. So we'll call like an outside server. They'll come to pick this up, and we have the records for everything we dispose that is considered hazardous waste. Thank you.
Great. I'm assuming that this is all going to be described in the reports published, documents and environmental findings. If it's not, then it's definitely going to need to be commented on. It's been raised by others.
There's in the chat, in the question and answer area, I went ahead for you, Roy, and I put 2 links to documents. One is the initial letter from the port discussing essay recycling lease extension review period. And then the second is the link to the Port of LA, where you can actually find the essay recycling lease document that is that has all the detail in it that you were looking for. So you can go ahead and I'm sure copy those down and look at it if you want.
Hey, could you send that to me too? Maybe it saves me a call to Chris Cannon.
Sure, it's just in, I mean, actually, it's on the port website. Can you, Pat, can you see the question and answer box where it says Q&A below, like on the
Yes.
lower part of your screen? Okay, click on that. And then Roy asked 2 questions.
I
And
see that.
so, yeah, so that's where I dropped it.
I got it. Okay. Thank you. That's enough.
You're welcome.
Good. Okay. Are we done with that one, Chris? Number 7?
I think so. Let's move on. What's next, Pat?
Well, there's 2 on here. Number 8 is discussion of Harbor Boulevard improvement and possible comments for the sequel analysis. I'm not sure what that what that item is.
No, I'm like I said, I didn't have any draft comments for any of the items. I'm kind of helping to support the committee. And so if you wanted to talk about those other things that were not on the committee today, we could briefly talk about them.
Okay. My concern on that thing from a notice basis is that I wasn't sure it gave enough notice to the public about what it was about to be able to, you know, to meet the requirements of the Brown Act, but I just don't know what it is. I did want to talk a little bit about item 5, review and suggest further actions to get the port to finish and naming Gaffey Parkway. At our first
Okay.
meeting, yeah, at our
No,
first meeting,
No objection. Why don't we talk about that then?
well, if at our last meeting, there was, Greg was concerned, he said it had been taking a long time. What are we gonna do about it? How do we get it done? And there was some stuff kicked around about forming an ad hoc committee and a joint committee and some other things for it. And my concern is this, is that the naming of the parkway as a John Greenwood Memorial Walk or something like that has been an issues committee for a really long time. Dan knows all about that. And then Diana is the street itself in terms of finishing phase 2 of the North Harbor beautification project has been in, started out in issues and then transferred over to planning and land use some years ago. And there's been numerous meetings and planning meetings and sit down meetings with the port engineers on designing it, and all sorts of work has been done on it. I think that before any committee, whether it's port or whether it's outreach or whether it's sustainability or anything, anybody comes in and wants to make suggestions, ought to take a look first before they do it and say what's been done so far. Otherwise, people end up spending their time and spinning their wheels working on stuff that's already well underway. So if we were in informal session, I would make a motion to lay it upon the table and say, you know, if a member of the committee still has concerns, go and look at the record and see what's been done so far, and then come back and suggest improvements to it. But don't disrupt things and make things, you know, don't create chaos for nothing. That's my two
That's fine with
cents.
me.
Doesn't, but we can't take action on it anyway. So I don't really see, there's the discussion and addition of agenda items for the next committee meeting. There is one item that's not on here that I did put in, Christian, and that has to do with the port's PAIP funding. I think most of, well, I'm looking at the list here to see who might know about this. The PAIP funding thing goes back about 8 years or so with the port, and it was basically a program or a way to for the port to use 10% of the net operating income to pay for improvements for public access to the waterfront. And it's, you know, the first 5 years it worked okay. The guarantee, there were certain guarantees in there for certain amounts of money. It amounted to about 200 million altogether for the first 5 years, half of it for maintenance and operation and half of it for new projects. And then when the 5-year, you know, when turned over, then it was supposed to be another round of PAIP suggestions and whatnot. It's been a source of controversy, and some of us think that the port has kind of changed the rules. I guess that's a better synonym for reneged on the deal. But I am thinking that it ought to be looked at again. I talked to Tom today about it because Tom's, you know, professor of business management and knows how to, and has an extensive background in other things. So I think this is really right up his alley. This is a layup to look at the port's financials, which are all reported, and also to look at the historical record. You know, what did the board approve? Did, you know, what was the role for the neighborhood councils supposed to be and for the community? How much weight was supposed to be given to their suggestions and so forth? And how was we supposed to make sure that new stuff is done and that the port was not going to raid the PAIP money for some of its other obligations. That it,
I do see
so,
that Tom wanted to speak next, so Pat, whenever,
I'm sorry.
let's take Thomas. Thomas, I think wanted to speak after you.
Okay, yeah, we can, happy to have him do it. If there's something else occurs to me, I'll take it up after he speaks.
Oh, yeah, I was okay to wait for you to talk, Pat. On that, I also didn't want us to forget number 6 on the agenda as a new member trying to get up to speed. Number 6 was about just, how do we organize, the documents we're looking at, or
Right.
refer to things saying they're important to go through and, learn things, even like the contact person, for financials. I know it's publicly available, but it'll be a quicker learning curve to, talk to someone and interact. So that kind of applies to number 7 and even the past agreements. So to the extent, Pat or other people have some history to guide the new members, I'd appreciate that. And then I wanted to second your idea, Pat. We did talk, and I do agree that, I'd love to do that and, get started. So I'm willing to do that once we're officially able to, I know today didn't turn out like we hoped because we don't have a quorum, but I stand ready to assist as much as I can within our parameters.
Is there what are the best times for you to maybe get on a 3-way call with like the director of the, Mike Galvin, who really is responsible for this and is like the number, I don't know what, probably he's an equal among others that reports directly to the general manager, the executive director of the port. And I think that a 3-way call between you and me and him would probably shorten the time a whole lot. Is there sometimes during the week when you're more available than others?
Yes, in general, Mondays are very good days. Tuesdays, Thursdays are not. Those are teaching days. So Mondays are good. I try to keep, Fridays free, but those are actually booking up faster than Mondays. So depending on how far out we go, Mondays and Fridays are the best days where I have a lot of time from 8 to 5. And then Wednesdays are good from 8 till about 1. I have a regular meeting every week that starts at 2:30. So just to give you a sense, and so if we're looking at the next 2 Mondays, very wide open, just one appointment at 10 o'clock.
Yeah, I think Pat, we had discussed possibly putting together a PowerPoint presentation to run around to all the new port committees, because we're just all activating. And many of us have been in the community a while, but still remain a little bit confused as to where this money comes from and how everything kind of articulates with San Pedro. So I would love to see something like that.
Right. I'm actually thinking of calling Mike Galvin right now and asking him if he can make the time.
And maybe in a future meeting, I love the idea of Kathleen of a PowerPoint, right? When I looked at the agenda, I see what we're discussing, but unlike some of the other agendas, I don't see, maybe I just don't know where to look, supporting materials to look at the budget we're discussing, or the agreement related to, the SA recycling lease extension, and, the Gaffey Park waive and where the commitment was. So that's the spirit in which, if there's some sort of public Dropbox, Google Drive, shared drive, where we can refer to it.
Also, one of the really good resources that I've found is any of these environmental documents are usually available. I know the Sustainability Committee, Gwendolyn Henry would definitely have access to many of these EIRs that I think get reviewed with the coastal and Northwest joint meetings. But yeah, try the sustainability committees. A lot of times, either Northwest, coastal, or even Central may or may not have those documents readily available. If you go onto the Coastal San Pedro Neighborhood Council website, I think it's cspnc.org. If there may be stuff, port stuff on the under planning and land use. They have a huge a bunch of documents there. Of course, Diane Nave has all kinds of information about different documents that cross over with planning and land use. So I don't know what your website looks like over there at Northwest, but I know that Robin Rudisell, who's our planning and land use person, is really good at posting that stuff online.
And that's great. I'll start to look at, it's a slower process to try to find things, in different areas too. So, what I'll recommend is we plan future agendas. So what I do on the two senates I'm a part of for the Cal State system of my campus is we hyperlink in the agenda, to the document. So the people preparing can, don't have to search and hope they find, but we try to curate that. But I know it's a process, and I know I have a full-time staff person who's able to kind of prepare the packet before the meetings with that. So that's just, maybe something you're already doing, or others are doing, but as we're reconstituting the port committee, I do know that some of these documents are really long, which is why I'm hesitant to use the old practice of attachments, because they might be really, really big files. So if there's any way to have a static place that they're saved and then dynamically link them in the agenda, we could just be clicking on them, and in the public too, I think would have an easier time understanding what we're talking about.
Yeah, sounds good to
Yeah,
me.
sounds good. Yeah.
Well, okay, and then Kathleen and Tom and Christian and Gwendolyn, I feel pretty strongly about the one thing, and that is this a list of mitigations that the port could do to make our lives better here in San Pedro. So I will update the list that the Northwest has already adopted in the past, and send it certainly to over to you, Kathleen, and I think that Christian, that as a port committee, the committee members should all receive it, and then you can decide if it can go wider, maybe to the whole board or something like that, or ideas, or before we kind of get together and finalize the list and say, okay, we agree on this approach to, fixing past problems or things, impacts that need to be addressed. And then we can then just attach them to our comments on every single environmental document that we comment on. What do you think?
I like the sound of that.
Yeah, well, for example, there's 4 that I've identified that I think are related to the port's planning differently for its own property, and planning and how it plans for the surrounding community. For example, streets. They designed the terminals for 60,000-pound wheel loads, and then they dump the trucks out onto the streets that are designed at 35,000-pound wheel loads, and it just chops the hell out of the streets. If you look at Harbor Boulevard, for example, just north of the Vincent Thomas Bridge, it's just, it's pothole heaven over there. It's really chewed up. And they built that street, and they built Gibson Boulevard, and there's similar kinds of issues with other things, basementing utilities and a couple of other things too. And I'll get those organized, and I'd like to send them to you and get your comments on them, and see if we can't come up with something that makes sense, and that maybe we can get over a period of time, get the port to do it. So I'll get that out in the next week or so here too, maybe in time for your meeting on the 7th, Kathleen.
Yeah, that'd be great. You should hear from Richard Havnick. Will be presenting some items. I'm not sure what isn't going to be on our agenda yet, because we haven't set it, but this will be the first port meeting where I've been the chair. So I'm a little nervous. I have some really wonderful, bright people working on coastal. We have Richard Havnick, who is just such an amazing reviewer of EIRs, and commenter on such. And then we have Dean Penchef, who is also a scientist and is knows how to read all kinds of fancy documents, both planning, land use, and the environmental stuff. So
Yeah.
it's good. And then of course we have Douglas Epperhart, who's really just been a wonderful president for us. So hopefully our port committee will be reflective eventually of the dynamic team that Coastal has.
Yeah. Well, you have June Smith too on your port committee, right?
Yes, she's so nice. And she has a plethora of knowledge.
Yep.
I'm interested in getting regular updates on air quality from the port. I did a little bit of, I was sleuthing around to kind of figure out what kind of sensors and air monitoring was happening in Southern California. So I went on a little bit of a journey through a bunch of, I think the Air Quality Management Board, the EPA sites. I was just bouncing around. A lot of information, a lot to absorb. I'm not going to learn it overnight, but I really enjoy following the air quality stuff. So hopefully I'm going to be able to sink my teeth into that.
It's not, I don't think it's on the list of mitigations that Northwest adopted in the past, but I'll try to remember to put a note in it, the one I sent to you, so that you can add that into a list of mitigation measures that we could be
Yeah.
asking for.
Are you guys is anybody interested in looking at the floating vessels just sitting out there, and how that is impacting our community, how it's measured? That was kind of some of the stuff I was curious as to find out. I do know that at the port president's meeting, Augie said that the 4 monitors that were over on Terminal Island were actually going to be replaced. Originally, I guess in the early maybe August, they indicated to us that they would not be replacing them, but some activists got together and they've agreed to replace them and continue to monitor them. So that's, that's the stuff in there actually affects Central and Northwest more so than Coastal. It's really important to that data is continually gathered.
Maybe that would be a good presentation matter to a joint port committee meeting between Central and Coastal and Northwest port committees. Maybe, Chris Cannon or somebody. Augie's a nice,
That.
yeah, Augie's a nice, everybody likes Augie and he's a good person, but he's not a decision maker. He's not a guy or a person who has to take the heat for what the port actually does. But maybe they can get Chris Cannon to come and make a presentation.
Yeah, anyone from the environmental, isn't there the person by the name of Teresa something with an S, Teresa Serta something? I can't remember, but they are all on the environmental group. And, really it's a waste of time to push Augie too much on these environmental issues because he doesn't have the knowledge base to answer us. And so, yeah, Chris Cannon and his group are definitely, people to ask questions to and request information. There's also, if you go into the regular, I guess is it the Port Commission meetings? They have Chris Cannon usually gives an environmental review, and I know that there was a September 2nd, maybe a port meeting, and I know that he gave some information. He gave a little bit of a review, a PowerPoint presentation on some of the stuff happening in surrounding the sensors. So I know that we can pull that up online because that's a recorded meeting. So maybe we'll just pull that and play it.
All right. Yeah.
Anyways, I think I'm going to take off. So I don't know if we're kind of finished up here.
Yeah, I think so. I can't think of anything else.
Thanks, Kathleen.
All right, thanks, everyone. It was nice to meet you, Tom Norman and Roy.
Yes,
And
thank
also
you.
Jennifer Martinez. Nice to meet you too.
Thanks for coming, Roy. Good to meet you, Kathy.
My pleasure. Thank you. You guys have a great night.
Okay, take care.
Take care. Okay. Bye-bye.
Hey,
Yeah, I would just say that I think that the way I would operate this, and we sort of already discussed it, but probably one of two ways just to try to increase the efficiency would be either have one or maybe two items and we just kind of work on it all together, or if we had more than two items, I think that it'd be best if one or two committee members just worked on it together outside the committee and then came in with the draft, and then the committee could just refine it and proof it. So I
yeah,
think that would allow it to be more effective. So that's what I would suggest, and I'll tell Craig and Dan that as well. And then I'll give a reminder to Cynthia. Maybe she had expressed interest on the port committee, but maybe she didn't realize that it was today. But we should also schedule a day where it's most convenient for all of us. I think that Thursdays probably work well for me and Craig, and I'm not sure about Dan or any of the rest of the committee, but maybe we could do a doodle poll offline or just a chain email just on scheduling, because scheduling isn't a Brown Act violation.
Jason was tied up on Thursdays up to today. Starting in October, he's available.
I can
Okay.
do Thursdays after and with all my teaching. So if we do it after 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
Hi, all.
Okay,
See you, Gwendolyn. Thank you.
okay, so
Thanks for the ideas on the other sites too. I've been looking at coastal and trying to find some things. So it's helpful to me.
Okay, well, very good. Shall we, any final announcements, any final comments from anyone?
Well,
No.
hi, I just joined the meeting. I had some emergencies that pulled me away. Can somebody give me the lowdown on
well,
what happened after the meeting?
after this meeting,
Yes.
Kristen, you're up. Yeah.
Did you want to?
I'm sorry, which meeting?
This meeting. I was trying to join. I had joined up, but I had several emergencies come up after I had joined the meeting, and I had, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, for this meeting, we didn't have an official quorum, but we kind of briefly discussed the essay recycling item, and we had a guest from essay recycling come, and he kind of gave us a little synopsis on what he does and what happens at essay recycling. Then we said that we probably want to table the naming item, and then we're kind of working on organizing ourselves as a committee, and Craig will start to do that with possibly Dick as an alternate, and then Tom, Norman, and Craig are going to attend the president's meetings if I'm not able to attend, and then we're going to work on scheduling a more regular meeting date, and that was pretty much it.
Great. Yeah, sorry guys. Christian, before you sign off, I wanted to try to reschedule a sustainability meeting for Monday. Actually, it ends up that Monday would have been better after all. So we can talk about that offline. Will you be recording? Will this recording be available online in any way?
So you're talking about Monday, as long as you have 72 hours to post, yeah, that I can change the date on that meeting, sure.
Okay, do you have any conflicts for 6 p.m.?
No.
No? Okay, Thomas, Tom, Pat, and members of the board committee, I will be trying to send you a potential letter, comment letter to, regarding the essay recycling issue. And that is what will be the one single topic for Monday.
Should we adjourn this meeting? So
Sure. I mean.
Yeah, good idea. Why don't we go ahead and without objection?